President Putin speaking there in Moscow earlier today. Well, let's get some more analysis. We can speak now to Ulrich Schmid, who is a professor of Russian Studies at the University of St. Gallen in Switzerland. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us, Professor. First of all, let's pick up on that warning from President Putin, a warning to the West. Anything he said there that we haven't heard before?
No, of course, this is an element that Western media picked as a headline, because, of course, this is the one thing that interests us. It was only a short section in Putin's speech. Putin elaborated more than 2 hours about the financial situation in the country, about new civil projects that he wants to start in the next 6 years. And it was clearly part of his presidential campaign, if you can call this a presidential campaign at all, because as usual, this is an election without a choice of candidates.
Yeah, indeed. I mean, very much a domestic audience in mind in that 2-hour-long address, as you said. I mean, what is the point of the State of the Nation address in normal circumstances?
I think most important is what Putin did not talk about. He didn't talk about the enormous cost of the war. He told the audience how many billions of rubles will go into new schools, into new university campuses, into new kindergartens, into infrastructure projects, into aviation. But this, of course, is nothing compared to the estimate of $120 billion that Russia spends on his war in Ukraine every year. And I think probably the main point of his speech was to make clear to his audience that he cares about the civil society in Russia. But on the other hand, he also conjured up the unity of the nation and made clear that he is not just someone running for a political office, but his point was that he understands himself as the incorporation of the national will of the Russian population. And this will also be the reason why we will see a very high result at the elections for Putin. My guess is that he will achieve at least 80% of the populace's vote.
Yeah, and he's got a little bit of momentum, hasn't he, on the battlefield in Ukraine, some small territorial gains. And do you think that's going to come into play with the results and give him a little bit of a boost?
Yes, clearly Putin has gained new self-confidence, and I think several factors here come in play. Putin clearly counts on a victory by Trump in the United States. Putin also has new ammunition from Northern Korea. We know by now that the civil attacks on several Ukrainian cities in December 23 were carried out by North Korean missiles. And then, of course, the attack by the Hamas on Israel, which occurred on October 7th last year, was clearly a birthday present for Putin. Putin happens to have his birthday also on the 7th of October, and the situation in Israel also, decreased the global attention that was earlier focused on the war in Ukraine. And now Putin really thinks that he can gain a new momentum for his military attacks in Ukraine. And earlier, he also had made clear that he will do whatever it takes to reach a minimal goal for Russia in Ukraine.
And just lastly, I mean, the death of Alexei Navalny 2 weeks ago tomorrow, I mean, how much of an influence do you think that's going to have on the elections in Russia? And how do you think the handling of his death, the announcement of it, the funeral arrangements, how much does that tell us about the state of mind, if you like, of the man in charge there in Russia?
Well, the death of Alexei Navalny sends a clear message to the Russian voters. And this message is the following: there is no hope whatsoever. Even if Alexei Navalny, is now in jail, they had to kill him to extinct the last spark of hope. And I see that in line with the exclusion of the presidential candidate Boris Nadezhdin, who ran for candidate but didn't get a registration. And Nadezhdin remotely looked like someone from the opposition. But Nadezhdin had only one point in his political program, and this was to put an end to the war. And by excluding Nadezhdin from the presidential election, the Kremlin made clear to the whole Russian population there is no hope for an alternative to the system of Putin. There is no alternative to this war. And paradoxically, the name of Boris Nadezhdin in Russian means also hope. So by excluding Nadezhdin and Navalny, the Kremlin extincted all hope for a political alternative in Russia.
Okay, well, thank you very much indeed for talking us through that State of the Nation address. Professor Ulrich Schmid, thank you very much indeed for your time today.